Myochi.
And I am Renee, and welcome to the 40 Spot. If this is your first time, welcome. We're glad that you're here. If you are one of our day ones, thank you for coming back. Please like, comment, subscribe to the 40 Spot on all social media platforms. Also, if you're following us on YouTube, hit the notification bell so that you know when we are going live. Also, if you are following us wherever you get your podcast, so like Spotify, Google Pods, or whatever, please leave a comment, rate us. So then that's when people can find us, and we ain't way down at the bottom. We're up there at the top. But again, welcome, and we thank you for coming.
All right, so on this week's episode, we are going to finally get to discuss the Woman King. Finally. But first, we are going to get into our While You Were Out segment. This is where we discuss news, entertainment, and personal experiences that have occurred since our last show. So, first up,
All
what had
right.
happened was
It's always a lot that happens in 2 weeks. Like literally,
listen,
we went every day. We would still have stuff for it. I mean, the news is every day. It's several times a day. So we would definitely have plenty of stuff.
right. And we're always trying to figure out, okay, what is relevant for us? What do we need to follow up with? What is are the people talking about?
Right.
One thing I know the people have been talking about and are really obsessed with is this Alex Murdaugh
Mm,
trial.
yeah.
I know a couple people that's like been obsessed. Literally watched the Netflix documentary, the documentary on HBO. Have been following, watched it live. So a lot of people were interested. I knew a little bit about it, so I was like, I don't know, but just to give you a little information about what happened. So he was actually from kind of your neck of the woods, South Carolina. He's South
Yes.
Carolina attorney. He was found guilty of killing his wife and daughter. The reason why a lot of people are majorly obsessed with this trial and information is because it's like so many things kept unfolding from just
Mm.
not just the killings, like different things he was involved with. Many people were saying like as soon as you thought that's not can't be the end, it's something new, like a television show.
Oh wow.
So I'm definitely interested in watching it. But apparently, not only has he been found guilty, oh, they also gave him his sentence, life in
Yes.
prison, no possibility of parole.
So he
So
had 2 life sentences
mhm, no
for them.
possibility of parole. So for the rest of his life, he's gonna be in jail. But they also have 100 other charges against him that he's going to be going to court for. That's wild. And it ranged from money laundering and also he faked his death. He faked his death. He faked his death, and because he was trying to get his son to receive his $10 million life insurance policy. It looks like the son didn't have anything to do with it. 9 times out of 10, he was going to get his son to get the money and get some money from his son once it all was said and done. But yeah, 100 additional charges. That sounds like 100 episodes.
Oh, absolutely. Like one, I was just so surprised. One the that Netflix came out with like a several part series
So
so quickly
quickly. Yes.
about this. And me, for people who don't know, I'm from South Carolina. I'm from upstate, where he was more lower country, South Carolina, Walterboro, and it was really crazy because I had went home recently, like 3 weeks ago, 2 weekends in a row, and like it is constant on every channel. Channel 2, channel 4, channel 7, channel 12. Like it is big, huge news. So they're even getting bombarded with even more stuff because it's there. This is the hottest things that's happening. And I know that they really didn't have like a really extremely strong case when it came down to the murder, but the judge that's over the case, they wanted him to determine whether they was going to put like these financial records and stuff, like to say like that was part of the motive, because he had a lot of shady dealings and stuff
Okay.
like that with his business, and I think potentially some of the clients. Just like you said, it just was layered, and then they was very shocked that the judge allowed it, because had they not allowed it, I guess to be able to, say like, hey, this was money was the motive. Um, they it might have went a different way, but with him being an attorney himself, um, I was very shocked at the verdict, because something just told me he's walking. He is going to walk.
The people that I know that were like in it said the same thing. Just even watching everything, they still did not think that he would be found guilty. They were very shocked. And I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that it might be a smaller town. A lot of people like trying to actually find people that have no like input would be very difficult.
Yes. And sometimes, even with cases in major cities, they try to get jurors from other counties and stuff with the hopes that they don't know about that. But with South Carolina, just being in general, it's not a very populous state. It's not a lot of big population. But when you're dealing with people of that magnitude, and him being an attorney, he probably was an attorney that people probably hired from different counties. So he definitely was, I'm assuming, definitely well known. Excuse me. And then plus, look, you be a stick in the mud and people know you. People they're gonna tell all kind of stuff and whatnot. So um I definitely was, not that I didn't think that he was guilty. It's just that we know the justice system is not always just, and we
Right.
definitely know that money can buy your verdicts.
Yeah, and uh, the justice system is not necessarily about morals. It's not
No.
about are you morally right, are you morally wrong. It's about facts and facts that you can prove. So I think that is why a lot of people thought, maybe it was circumstantial, and based on what like a lot of things you're saying, because he probably represented a lot of different people, and Medea said about lawyers, right? No offense to any lawyers, but they
Like,
lawyers.
oh yes.
And so there could be people that have had those experiences with him, and they just gonna automatically assume he was lying. But he's also so much involved in other things. Like you also said that it's kind of like if you lie, you killing them too. So that's
Yeah.
very interesting. It was so funny because I didn't even know the trial was going on until last week. And I'm like, no, you need to see it on Netflix. And I'm like, okay. So I think it might be something I might have to check out, even though we know the end. I'm
Yeah.
fine with knowing the end, but just the way people have been talking about, like my manager at work was like, I am obsessed. She came in every day last week talking about it. And the week before, like watching the Netflix and
Like this
HBO.
was the soap opera.
Yes, and I thought it was like something very old, and then she came in. I think it happened on Wednesday, and was like,
Yeah.
he was found guilty. Like, okay, but she was very surprised, along with a lot of people. So that's that on that, honey.
I need to
Alex, what
find out
about?
what all the hoopla is about and stuff. So, you know, maybe that is something like maybe this week, next 2 weeks, we can watch that, and then we can have even more, because, as I say, he's going to be going on trial for more charges.
A hundred.
So,
It's
ooh,
actually he has about 100 charges. That is wild.
well, I will say this: maybe there is a tide that is turning in the judicial system,
Maybe
where, guess what? You do it,
it's
your
no
money is no
preferential
good here.
treatment.
Money no good here. You got
Right.
all that money. Like, I remember watching like the preview. They had a landing strip for airplanes on their property. You ain't think to fly away. I'm not saying like, okay, I'm glad that you got caught or whatever, but it's
Well,
just
and
kind of
that's the
like
thing
you did.
about getting away with things. You get away with so much. That's the more you do, and the more
Yes.
you really we've seen it on movies, we've seen it just with people with general small time crimes, right? The longer you
Absolutely.
get away with certain things, the longer you think you're good, and you kind of get cocky, and child,
Hmm.
he in jail. He going to jail. When I read, I was like, life in prison and no parole. So, speaking of people going to jail, so I don't know if you guys remember, this happened. This started like a few years ago with Tim Norman. He's a former owner or co-owner of Sweetie Pies. I cannot remember, Miss Ruby. I think that was her name.
Yeah.
His mom was the owner, but he was like the co-owner. And it came out that he had a hit out on his nephew. Did his nephew get killed? I believe so. His nephew got killed, and it was found that he did the murder for hire
Yeah.
for his nephew. Uh, and they finally have a sentence for him, and he's been sentenced to life in prison. Which is interesting
Mm.
that it took that long for a sentence. He's probably just been in jail waiting for a sentence. But yeah, so that has finally happened. He has a sentence, which has to be heartbreaking for his mother, like the whole situation, the whole family, right? Just break the whole family up
Yeah.
apart with that. But that is wild. But you do the crime, you got to do the time, especially you take life. It's, it's wild.
Yes. Because I remember, didn't you one time go to Sweetie Pies?
I did. I took my mom there for her birthday. Like she would watch the show all the time. So
Okay.
this is when we lived in Nashville. So we drove to St. Louis for the weekend, and we went to Sweetie Pies and did some St. Louis stuff. But the goal, the birthday was to go to
Yes.
Sweetie Pies to eat, and the food was good. The food
Yeah,
was
because
good.
the show initially started out on the OWN network,
Hmm.
and I mean, it was definitely a staple in the St. Louis culture and people that they knew, but that just blew it up. And I remember her son, because I used to watch the show, and he was he had recently had been to jail and had got out of jail, so he
Right.
was on television and stuff, and it was kind of like, you know, y'all are definitely not strapped for cash. That's
No,
just
definitely not strapped for cash. And I think this happened when I was moved to Atlanta, maybe a couple of years ago. I don't remember when it happened. Let me say this, but she had recently, as in less than 5 years ago, got a loan. It was like a $2 million loan or something like that to open other locations. And I just remember, distinctly remember it because it's kind of like never giving up, because I'm like, this lady is pretty old.
hmm
Not to be an ageist, but a lot of times it's like, yeah, we're gonna give you this loan, but how are you gonna be able to pay back if you are much older? It's just harder a lot of times to get loans.
right.
But I do remember that, and just how much she got, how much it was reported that she received. And that was just a couple of years ago, which now that may have happened before that came out about Tim. So I wonder if it was really for that, because well, anyway, that's me getting real conspiracy theory over here.
Well, sometimes I look at the comment section, and some people that are from St. Louis, they always say, I'm from St. Louis. And sometimes they know this family personally and different, a lot of different things. But I need Netflix or on network. I need y'all to come out with a little docu-series about that whole
They
thing,
really
because
should. They should, especially since it was on there. So they have some clips. They have some footage. They might be, girl. You smart girl. There's somebody over there.
I
They
know.
thinking. You need to
Yeah.
send them a little email.
When the
I
docu-series coming
hear.
out. Right. The people wants to know what is going
Yeah.
on with this. And um his mother has definitely been very, very hush hush, and other people in their family. And maybe they were speaking out a lot when it initially first happened, but now, given the verdict, it's kind of like nobody's really saying anything. But I know
I
that's
mean, what
hard
do
on
you
a family.
say? Yeah, it's like, what do you say to that?
I don't
What do you
know.
say about that? And how, as a mother, because I think his nephew actually worked at
Yeah, they did,
the
and
store exact with
they
them.
would
So it's
have
like,
issues and stuff. I remember on the
hmm
show, but then sometimes you have to take that stuff with a grain of salt because you
right.
don't never know how much is trumped up just for ratings and for
hmm
the drama and different things of that nature.
Yeah,
Mm, but it's very very heartbroken because the victim and the the perpetrator are all from the same family, and this
exactly,
is a sister's child. Like I still
exactly.
just don't understand. Like y'all could have just fought. Not saying that's the best, but
I
everybody would
mean,
live.
everybody been fine with a bit, a little bloodied and bruised, but
You
that's a
live.
wrap, you know.
You live for another day.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what's happening in Tennessee?
Well, Tennessee, we got a lot of stuff going on.
Okay,
Lot
okay.
of stuff going on. So right now, what has been happening with some of the laws are passing that they are not going to allow these drag show story times that's
hmm
happening, or anything like that. Um, so I still don't understand it because I think for children that are actually and their parents are taking them to story time at libraries and stuff, even though sometimes the person that's reading the book, they may dress up in type of character and stuff. So even if these individuals dressed in drag, for children to be that young, they're probably going to perceive it as being like a clown,
Right, just dress up.
or you dressing up just reading this book like, oh, this is funny, whatever. I remember going to story time when my son was small. A lot of times the kids, they so small, they really not paying attention. They walking around, they doing other stuff, the
And if
parents or
you're
whatever.
not giving them the flavor and the energy, they like this.
Exactly.
The
So
parents are
but
listening to the story.
these are not like your typical, okay, I come to the library for this hour to read because it's a story time hour. Like, no, they're having full on drag shows where they are in very, very provocative clothing, risque stuff, the dancing, the twerking,
Is
even
it being reported that is risque, or is that like
you can
true?
look at it and you can tell. Yeah. Like some of these people, they are almost naked. Some of the things that they have on, there's been a lot of videos and stuff that have been posted of different things, but the state of Tennessee is like, nah, we're not having that. And I really don't see, if you want to go and read to children, okay, if you're not acting out, like having other people act out what's happening in the book, what is the what is the purpose of doing what you would do at the club, though,
Mm.
that type of performance. I don't understand it. I really and truthfully, I don't get that
You
because
mean you're asking like, if you, why are they dressed? I mean, because drag is not, just for clarity for anyone, drag is not a trans person. That is, a
exactly.
lot of people who do drag live their life day to day, um, as a, what do we just say, like as a man or a woman, their
Right.
biological um
I guess
given.
I don't have a
Oh,
problem like if you're dressed up as, and a lot of times they definitely over the top caricature, looking when they're dressed in drag. But when they are up here and then you have your buttocks out and your cheeks out and the music and you're twerking and you're on the floor and you're doing all these acrobatic, provocative moves.
hmm
Like that part, I don't. How does that convey that you want to go to the library and read story time for the children?
yeah, I feel that, because I mean, no matter who was doing it, I would have a problem in that type of setting. Because
Exactly.
children can see people in their bathing suits, or they go to gymnastic performance, they'll see certain things. But I don't know, maybe, I don't know, somebody thought it was I don't know. I think for me though, where I find an issue with the state of Tennessee and any other states that have an issue with this, is how they can find these things and make laws, but they still have not made any gun laws that kill more children.
Exactly. That's
Like,
that's
you
that's
know, I
definitely
mean,
true.
yes, this is something that, you know, you question and be like, but why, what's the point, what's the goal of this? But also, y'all have the time, so can you not make the time to protect children in classrooms? Just wondering.
Um,
No.
exactly. Probably not. Not so much. So,
Because that, and that's why stuff like that, it's like, yes, people have their own personal opinions and you have your
but
questions.
protect children at all costs, not just
Exactly.
with one thing, but with the other. Like
Exactly.
you do
Like,
not want to
you outrage.
overexpose children. That's why you don't let a 10-year-old drive a car. You know what
Exactly,
I'm
but you
saying?
want, but you don't find an issue with children being exposed to guns because y'all want to give teachers guns to have in the classroom.
Which I definitely disagree with that because
Exactly.
trust me, like so that has been happening. Also, another thing that has been happening with my alma mater, Tennessee State University, we have been in the news as well, and this is something that's ongoing. There was a protest 2 weeks ago um about so it was found at the local state Congress that Tennessee State has shown that the state should have given them over the course of some years $500 million
Wow. Not
in
surprising.
funding. In
Mm-hmm.
funding. So they haven't gotten that money. So it's been determined that they was owed that money.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are trying to come in and have like a four different governing bodies over Tennessee State University with the ultimate to dismantle the university. It's trying to say like it's not up to par. It should have all of these other, trying to compare it to other PWIs, which is predominantly white institutions, that they should have over the course of the years be as of equal in terms of um, housing acceptance rates, graduation rates, new new um, course curriculums, um,
That sounds
facilities, and everything. But it's
this
kind of like,
sounds about white, right? So you don't give
yeah,
me what I'm supposed to be getting so that I can make changes and grow with the times. And so when I say you owe me money, well, you know what? You can't get that money because you didn't do these things that you were supposed to do when we were supposed to give you the money that we didn't give you. That sounds about white. That
yep,
sounds about white. And when I say
and
white, I'm talking about white supremacy that runs through the veins of
exactly,
this country and institutions and all. It's when we talk about systemic racism, this is a perfect example. That
perfect
is, I
example
had no
with
idea about that. That is
yes,
outlandish.
yes.
And for the record, because Tennessee State is a state school, so it is public. That is why they can kind of try to do this kind of stuff.
So one of the
That is
governing
crazy.
bodies that they have like almost like 36 other institutions that they govern or whatever. And some of those institutions is University of Tennessee, and there are multiple sites, as well as some other state supported schools that have tremendous amount of money that is being, given to them, trying to say, well, that's going to be the gold standard, to say it's them, you should be comparable to them. But I guarantee you they have never once missed a payment or any upgrades or anything like that the school should have received down through the years, where Tennessee State has. And I remember when I was watching some of the trial, and Dr. Glover, who is the president of Tennessee State, one of the congressmen was asking her and was like, and he said in such a derogatory, egregious tone, was, well, we've noticed that now in the state of Tennessee, more minorities are choosing to go to HBCUs. And so it's not just going to Tennessee State. They're choosing Fisk,
Right.
they're choosing Lane, they're choosing other HBCUs. And, I guess he felt like, oh, that's going to be a burn towards her. But I was just so impressed with her comeback. And then she said, well, I think that's a good thing. That lets me know that what we're doing to try to promote and going to schools, that we're getting more people to actually go to school, and that they are choosing Tennessee State University as well as other HBCUs. And she said, and they're still just, some of them, they are just deciding, I'm going to school.
Exactly.
So it's like you're mad because of that. So the office of the president and like admissions and stuff is sent out to like all of the alumni, if you're part of the alumni association, emails, and it had, and they posted it on their social media as well, the documents, and was just saying, they try to say, well, y'all alumni do not give back in like other alumni do at other PWIs. Now, I would say this is another layer of systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Although you have graduated from college and you will have an equal degree, you do not get the equal pay as your white
Exactly.
counterparts. Because
Exactly.
who was it, Michael Moore, he did a documentary about that, and he was like, well, I knew it was, income disparities. He was like, I was thinking like maybe $5,000 or $6,000. He was like,
It's like a
no,
hundred
it was,
thousand dollars.
yes,
So like
fifty,
a
sixty
hundred.
thousand dollars. So
Yes,
it's like,
it's
so
hundreds of
if I'm
$1,000.
not
It's
getting as
ridiculous.
much, then that's going to affect what type of housing I'm able to afford. Also, guess what? It's going to affect where my child can eventually go to school, whether I want to send them to private schools or public schools, or even, colleges and universities. It's going to affect everything. So it's like, when you do these type of things, it's not just one thing. When you don't give the money that's owed, whether it's to the college or the institution, or to me as an individual, as the employee, it does affect everything else in terms
Exactly.
of what I'm able to afford after school,
And
and
what
to be able to
does
give
the
back.
online?
Because trust me, everybody who I know who have graduated from HBCU, they have consistently said they wish they could give more
Right. Because
and
I
in
give to
abundance.
Fisk every month. However, it is not what I wish that I could. But I'm like, I'm gonna do something, but I'm giving y'all what I can.
Right.
And but what's again crazy is, what does alumni giving back have to do with you owe me money? That's like somebody, you
Nothing.
going to somebody and saying, oh, so you know that $1,000 I loaned you 6 months ago that you said you was gonna give it to me 30 days later? I need it. Where
Mm-hmm.
Renee never gave you her money back, and your point, that doesn't have anything to do. But that again, like I said, that sounds about white. I definitely need to be following it. I did not know about that.
Yes, so definitely I would definitely be keeping people abreast. Um I because when that thing came out the next day, faculty, staff, alumni, people even flew in to be there at that courthouse. It was like, no, you will not dismantle this institution. You will not dismantle it, because that's what essentially, and that's to say, well, we didn't get the money because you didn't do all these other different type of things, but it was already a list of things that they already had to do. And coming from that campus, the campus is very, very clean. I've stayed in the dorms are very, very nice, because they were saying, they accepted too many people, but too many people accepted Tennessee State as well. So then they were renting out hotels so the students could come in. It's like, well, then that's not acceptable. But it's like, what are we supposed to put the people? But had you
Yeah,
been giving us money, we would have had built more dormitories.
exactly. But as we have always done, we always make something out of nothing. And, I know that TSU will do their thing. I'm pretty sure they're even talking to Fisk, because, with Fisk, we're private school, but so not as much space, but with the increase in students, one thing that they did, they were doing the containers and kind of remodeling them, and they were good for, I think, for like two students,
Mhm.
small, like a
Like the tiny
carrier.
homes.
Yeah, like a tiny home, but like the containers that you see on ships,
Yeah.
those type of containers. And, that's being inventive. Inventive? Is that a word?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, figuring out and being creative. And so I know TSU, and the TSU has an illustrious alumni, lawyers, congressmen. like people who are very
We got
connected.
Oprah, honey.
So exactly. So it's not gonna be dismantled. They definitely are um they do like they like to do, which is threaten you with a good time. They threaten you with the ultimate. And I don't know, is it the goals you think we're back down? Absolutely not, because we don't back down. We keep
No,
going.
no.
We just keep going. And honey, speaking of keeping going,
Yes.
that's exactly what we're talking about tonight, honey. Because so Renee finally, oh finally watched The Woman King. And it came out in September of last year. That is why I'm being so dramatic. It came out in September of last year. I went with one of my friends to see it the weekend it came out. I think I just saw like a clip of a trailer. I went about singing its praises. I went to work like y'all have to see The Woman King
Yes.
and tell you like what it's about. No, just go see it. When you see it, I'm telling you, yes, it's history, but it's like I read something that it said is the gladiator of our time. That's what I read
I
that
would
one of
agree.
the reviewers, the big time critics said, because it had all the emotion, right? It had the friendship, it had funny parts, makes you laugh, it had the
Yes.
fight. It started off with fighting. It's so funny. So another reason why we're reviewing it today is because it's now on Netflix. So if you didn't get to see it,
Absolutely.
if you loved it, go and watch it on Netflix. I did again. When I saw it, I was like, I need to have this because in 20 years, I want to be able to watch it again. I don't know if it'll work on Blu-ray, whatever they're gonna be doing in 20 years. But anyway, sat down to
Burnett
watch it
said
with
the
my
best
mom.
movie of 2022.
Listen, I sat down to watch it with my mom, and it started off they coming out the bush with a fight, and she was like, "Okay, that's it, I'm done," because it was definitely very much fighting and
It's action
so
packed.
much,
And it's
so
very
much.
not just that it's a historical piece as for what was going on, but it has even more of different things in culture, our culture, even thinking about, with Ghana, the slave museums where they used to just host people, and
Hmm.
house them until they was going to ship them, even seeing that and the genesis of how trades was made, and it was just like, as long as you're selling us, your enemy, then you're protected. But then that was only for a little bit of time. So it
Hmm.
was it was breathtaking. It was
It really,
definitely it was breathtaking. I love the movie. I really did. But September just wasn't a good month for me. So, and then going into the next thing you know, it's October,
yeah.
trying to get to the holidays, and boom. But I was just surprised because Netflix picked it up very, very quick.
Yes, like you can actually rent it now. You can rent it and buy it. I'm like, it's on Netflix. I don't,
Look,
maybe
we
it'll
come from that
expire.
generation where it took almost a year or so for something to come back out on
Exactly. You
Blockbuster.
were waiting for it to come in Blockbuster. Oh my God. And then, Blockbuster only had 5 copies. That was the
Girl.
worst when something to come out and all he had was 5 copies. Come on now. Y'all do. We wanted everybody was coming try to rent this movie.
And them five people weren't gonna return it back on time.
Fernette said the movie, it just really also spoke about the inner and outer struggle of Black women, period. It really, really did.
Yeah.
And it's so much. I mean, honey, if you haven't seen it, we about to talk about it. Okay. So I hope you don't feel like we're gonna do any spoilers, because I mean,
Yeah, should have seen it by now. Don't in all this world, don't be a Renee.
no, but also go and watch it on Netflix. It was so good. And then okay, it's so many different themes. I know we want to touch on a lot of stuff, but they have the themes of sisterhood, of never giving up, like you talked about, the present day so um the story is set in 1823, so that's the time, and it is in the kingdom of Dahomey, which is real. That part is very real. The kingdom of Dahomey,
Mm-hmm.
what is present day Benin, and for some geographical idea, Benin is right next door to Lagos, Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, that piece is very much real. And the stories about the Ngoji, they were also real, and they were known as the Amazon warriors. They were the largest empire in Africa. They, what is the year? 1600 to 1904, which is a long time. So from 17th to 19th history, 17th, 19th century, they were around and most powerful
So
kingdom.
close to 300 years, over
Yeah,
300 years.
yeah.
That's a long reigning people,
hmm It really is.
our people.
Um, Another thing that is very real about the story is the king. What was, oh Lord, what's the king's name? King. What's the king's name? I know
Wait a
it
minute.
was
Let me look good real quick.
John Bottega was the king, honey. Fine.
Yeah,
Fine
he
is his
did.
name in the movie. Oh, Gazo. Is that how you say it? Gazo. It's
Yes.
Ghezo. He was a real life figure who ruled in Dahomey from 1818 to 1858.
Mm-hmm.
So he was also real. Now Naniska, who is um
Viola Davis.
but yeah, that is a story based on things that happened before. The name is real, so the person is real, but it wasn't necessarily like Naniska was the woman king. Naniska was someone, and they believe that she was someone in Goji because that one of the warriors was mentioned in a book um, in the early 1900s. And so that's where they actually got the name Naniska. But that piece wasn't as real. I mean, the movie was so good. It speaks, the storyline is basically they are warriors. The idea of woman king wasn't, because I remember when it first came out, people didn't even watch the trailer and they're like, why does a woman need to be king? And it's like people really have opinions about stuff they have no idea about. So once I watched the
Absolutely.
movie, you know, it was because it's the idea of you having the yin and the yang. And it wasn't that she was wanting to be a king, it was that the first reigning queen. So instead of saying queen, it was the woman king.
Right.
And so it kind of tells the story of Naniska rising in um, troop and leadership because she was there when she was younger. She was around 40 for the story. She was in her 40s. That's where the story is. She's in her 40s. And you know how she's leading her group and how she became the woman king. So it was a great story. So it's based on it's inspired, let's say that. It's inspired by true events, but it's not
Hmm.
completely all true. But
Yes.
very inspiring. I know when we left, we were all we were saying, "Hey, Cody!"
Yes. Yes. The traditional clothing, the traditional um dances, in terms of celebration, what they did when they're leaving to go off and when they're coming back, um, and everything.
They
I
respect for the
really,
dead.
yes, yes, where it's like you have to honor your ancestors because without them, where would you be?
Yeah,
And also they help guide and they lead, us. And Viola Davis, her character, you can just tell like she has definitely been weighed down with a lot of things that she's seen, and it's not closer to the end that you really seen like some of her the genesis of her, and that was just culturally kind of what happens again with females throughout history to where we are at now, where you know no matter what the culture was, to a certain extent you was seen as a second class citizen, property of, and God forbid if where you live there end up being conquered,
right.
because those women, they definitely was going to be raped and put to work, if not just killed in itself.
And we
So
saw that with, I forgot. Oh, what was the girl's name? We saw that
now
in the
we
beginning. Yes, Naui. Because we saw that with Naui. She did not want to be married. and her dad continued trying to match her, and the man slapped her, and
It
she
was
like, I ain't man, no man not gonna beat on me.
yeah, it was like, what you don't listen to your husband? And just like, was they already married? So I
No, they were
guess,
not.
yeah, but I guess it was just kind of like, we're gonna go and see this, and it's just kind of like, this man, he 100 years old. I don't want to be dealing with him.
Exactly.
I'm gonna tell you that scene right there. It made me think about Color Purple
Hmm.
when young Whoopi Goldberg goes to Mr. House, and then you get there, and all these bad children just running around, and then they throw that rock and
Yeah.
hit on the head. But then later on, it turned around. He's beating on her, and it's just like, this is a child, and you're a grown man, and there's typically like nobody there to save you. And obviously in this kingdom, if you didn't want to be somebody's wife, guess what, we're gonna drop you off at the palace door, and
And
you'll
they
be a
may or may not,
whore.
exactly. And they may or may not take you. So you really didn't have a lot of options.
So it's just
Especially,
like, I gotta win. It's like, this is the Olympics. Like, if I don't get in there, guess what, I gotta get back out here. Now I got some training, so guess what, I'm probably gonna be going inside my husband's head, because it ain't still some things in me, but I just didn't make the cut. But then now you definitely have to go back, and you have to get married to somebody that your family wants you to be married to, because arranged marriages during that time throughout the earth, that was the thing.
and I mean, some of that is still real hit now. And to be honest, I'm not too much opposed. I like the conceptually the idea of arranged marriage. For a lot of people, it worked. For a lot of people, it hasn't. But the idea is that it definitely takes that, that sounds bad. It takes the emotion out, but it takes some of the play out of it. I say that it
Mm-hmm.
takes the play out of it. But also, as we know, now is a new day where um you have more people that who don't want to get married. Because back in the day, regardless, men wanted to get married because being married was a sign of honor and achievement and something. So, but now there's a lot of men who don't, and same for women. That definitely shows the day, and it's interesting because this was set in 1823, and how they had Naui. Then she did not want to get married, and she
Mm-hmm.
definitely wanted to be a war. Like, you dropped her off. She knew that, like, nope, I
It's
don't want to be
like,
married.
thank you.
I have seen it. I don't want it. And he wasn't even the first person that they tried to set her up with.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell from the conversation, this was like the final straw, the final one they were able to get for her that was willing to marry her. And she was like, nah, I'm good. Get somebody else to do it. So, and then she becomes, she goes in and she's welcomed with open arms, not with everybody, but I think that's the part when we talked about sisterhood. It was very sisterhood oriented because it starts with them going to a camp to get their people who had been kidnapped from their homie. They're outside
Mhm.
of the kingdom. Well, in the
Right.
kingdom, but outside the palace. So the Igoji, they are a group of women warriors that go to fight. It wasn't, oh, we might say, that's who went. And the movie starts with them actually going to get the people that have been kidnapped from their homie. And so they also took other women. They
Mm-hmm.
took the men and women as captives. The men were sold to slavery, the slave trade, which we'll get into more in that piece of the conversation later. And the women actually were given the opportunity. You can make a decision right now. You can fight with us or you can leave. Some people chose to leave. Where they went, I don't know. They said get somebody else to do it. I
Right.
don't want this life. Y'all be fighting, getting
Right, because
swords stuck in y'all.
everybody,
I'm
the
good.
idea of, okay, these are the people that are protectors of the kingdom. Everywhere else, they women. That
Right.
mean they're men. Like, and y'all ain't gonna be having me fighting. And some of them just like, I can't phantom this. But then some of them looked at like, look, I know I don't want to get over there on that ship, because at this point in the 1820s, 1830s, everybody throughout the continent of Africa is well known about the slave trade, because you
Hmm.
already have over close to 200 years
So you know people
of
have not
this happening.
returned.
Exactly. So they already know. They get on there and they ain't coming back. So it's like, I know I don't want to go over there. And then it's just like wherever you at, and then maybe your whole village or has just been utterly destroyed. You don't have nothing to go back to. So it's just like, well, I'm gonna stick on over here. And guess what?
Mhm.
Y'all came over here and y'all got y'all people. I can fare better with some people that's fighting. They not telling me, they gonna kill me. It's like, but guess what? You gotta fight for us. You join our army. If not, we
Right.
let you go, and then you go, and it's like, well, what are you gonna do? So, um,
One of my go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, that dynamic was so, and it's just kind of one of those things where it's like representation matters, because think about the young women of that tribe that grew up seeing these women of strength. And it wasn't like to downplay the strength of men, because they had men warriors too. But it's to
Mhm.
say, look, but the women got it in too. But you could see, like, I could want to be that person. It's the same way that we talk about now, seeing representation in media, even just in real life, being able to see doctors, lawyers, engineers, politicians, people of in every level of life, and to be able to see someone that looks like you, to let that young child know, you know what, I too can do that. So
And
that
also,
that just that just made me great, because like she seen it was just like, this ain't what I want.
mhm.
I can be great. Let me be
Yeah.
great, people. Let me be great.
Yeah. And also the representation now, seeing
Mm-hmm.
this movie and knowing that yes, although these are just inspired stories, an inspired story, but knowing that Ngoji was real, that the group of women who fought for the kingdom of the homie is real, is something that is not talked about. It's not
Right.
well known. There are people who know, but it's not something that we talk about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And to now this story to be out and to people understand that when people around the world knew about this group of women, and this is something
Except for the
I
West.
well, they knew. I mean, child, they knew. They just not telling us. They don't want to tell us nothing.
Yeah.
It's just, they're not telling us. But with a fun fact, I don't remember when I read this. It was a long time ago, but I remembered it when I watched the movie, and I want to say I can remember in an interview someone talking about it. It may have been Viola Davis, probably because she was in the story, but the story of the Amazon. So one thing, these group of women were called um, the Amazons, right? And then
Right.
they refer to them as Amazons a couple times in the movie. But if
Right.
you think about the story of Wonder Woman, who is a European uh
Warrior.
story,
Mm-hmm.
and what they said that she came from where the Amazons, and this idea of a group of women who were only women, this story is really based on the Goji. It was whitewashed.
Uh,
And if you remember, if you saw the movie, I know you did, Renee, but you remember that
yeah.
part with the lasso. The first thing she said is, "What am I supposed to do with this? How is this actually a weapon?" And in the
Right.
end, she ends up using it. But if you remember, for Wonder Woman, that is
That
like
was
her
her
main weapon.
weapon. It was.
So what's crazy to me is, that story. Although the whole story of Wonder Woman is definitely fictitious, a fictional story. And do I care that the Wonder Woman is white? No, but I know that they made it based on this real life story that we didn't even know about. That's the
Right.
point I'm trying to say.
Right.
That there's
So
a real life
somebody
story
just
that,
didn't just conjure up like, oh, okay, this is gonna be a woman warrior, because
and
when
they
you
come
look
from a
at like
women.
DC Comics, they have very few female um superheroes.
Right.
Same way with Marvel. There's very, very few. So they gotta come from somewhere, because
And
people, your brain ain't even trained to be like, okay, it's
exactly.
gonna be a woman.
And that's what I was about to say, something that I've recently, I don't really know it. I've just been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube, to be honest, about ancestors and history and stuff like that, because history can be very overwhelming just because
Yes.
It's a lot of things that happen a lot of times as past, and a lot of the things, stories that we learn them separately. It's
Yes.
never taught that, hey, but do you realize all of these things actually happen at the same time? And a lot of these were
Mm-hmm.
cause and effect, or they
Mm.
were happening, so that's a part of history that you probably have to get a higher degree um education to know all of that. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
that. I majored in biology, so there's that. But I was watching something on YouTube. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a Harvard School of Divinity
Okay.
thing on YouTube. Anyway, they were talking about ancestry, honoring, and just different things, and then connecting it with history. All that to say, one of the professors was talking about the importance of even knowing history for comics, because there are a lot of
Mm.
comics that are based in history, not just, if you're talking about African American history, but just history period. A lot
Okay.
of comics are actually based uh, in historical events. It's not this,
Mm.
I mean, not to say people weren't creative, but a lot of it is based in historical events. But one in particular is Wonder Woman. Wonder
Yeah.
Woman, people love Wonder Woman. You can love Wonder Woman. I don't hate it. Y'all do what y'all want. But the whole point of the fact that it is, I would say, loosely based. I can't
Yeah.
confirm that. But if we talk about a group of women, using a lasso for a weapon, you know,
But let me just,
Amazons. I'm just saying.
something that's going on back up here in his head.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I say, they refer to them as Amazon. And as we know that when the millions of years ago, when it was just one landmass, Pangea, and the
Mm-hmm.
way that it broke off, Africa and South America kind of coupled with each
Right.
other. And right there on the edge, that is Brazil that has the Amazon rainforest. And when you look at where Nigeria is situated, it's a coastal state as well. So when things kind of split off and broke up, that could have been because these people, they are referring to them as Amazon. So people, they already, and they wasn't just like, no, I'm not Amazon. What is this Amazon? So they was well aware that, guess what, on the other side of the planet, it
Mm-hmm.
was some woman warriors and stuff as well. So it could have been already that this is some things that they was doing, but then maybe from this particular kingdom, once it get named, or when people, they really start recording
Mm-hmm.
um history, even oral history, down through the years, that this stuff was already there. And then
Yeah.
guess what? It was already just broken off. Just food for thought. Ain't no conspiracy theory, because we already
Exactly.
know that that was connected, because they found fossils. Half of the fossil was found on the continent of South America. The other half of the fossil was found on Africa. It was all
and
one
and that's
big
the
group.
importance of history and knowing these little things, right? Because if you don't know these things, being able to connect it, history in and of itself, I would think any person who's like a history buff, or like
Mm-hmm.
scholar, that's the word I was looking for, they say that like history did not occur in, it wasn't like pinpoints. It wasn't like these
Mm-hmm.
one little linear thing. This happened, then this happened. No, actually a lot of things happen at one time. And knowing these little bits and pieces is great, but putting it together is what actually tells the full and the big story.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember the name of my girl with the nails?
Amenza. No, 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 not her. Izoji.
Izoji, yes.
Izoji.
Izoji. Oh, first of all, she had all the great one-liners in the
Oh
movie.
yeah, she did.
She really
Yes, she
was.
did.
She was like, whenever Izoji speaks, you listen. And then she said, I'm Izoji.
Like, it's like,
You need to
okay,
be
I'll
listening to
listen. Like,
me.
I just told you something. Listen,
Exactly.
turn your ears on. Yes. I loved her character. I like the fact that they did have the nails where it was just like, look, every part of you, everything can be as a weapon, but it still was. Even when I was looking at them, they definitely had very, very nice manicured nails and stuff. But then when you think about it, if you're using them for a weapon and stuff, they're gonna be nice procured just throughout, but they still give that feminine, you know, feel to it. And you don't ever know. That could have been because of them. Women's like, hey, I got fingernails and I
That's
like
very
them.
true. That's very true. As protection, not necessarily or useful, because having nails can be very useful, a useful tool sometimes. Now, you fake nails, sometimes you can't get under stuff because they're so thick. That's a whole nother story. But sometimes they come in clutch. But
Yeah.
yeah, that could very well be one of the reasons why for nails have been a big thing.
Yes.
Um,
And everybody really in the movie, they were rooting for Nawai, because it's like she was the underdog, and it was just like we see the fire in her. Like we need that. That is the type of warrior that we need. It's just like, but she got to pass all these physical tests. And when they would just try to pour into her, like channel what these things are, and use them to be able to outwardly express whatever type of anger, different stuff that is going on with you. And as we realized later on, that she was adopted.
mhm.
So she knew that she was adopted. And I guess that's probably was some under dynamic of that, of not knowing where did I come from.
And
Like,
also, some stuff is just in your genes.
it is.
Some stuff is in your genes. As our old teacher used to say,
So
you can
you can
change your
change your
Levi's, but you
Levi's, you
can't
can't
change your
change your
genes.
jeans.
For anybody that's under 40, don't know what Levi's are, they were a brand like Juicy or Old Navy or whatever.
They
I think,
still they
are they
still is
but people
popular
still,
now. Yeah. Them
who
red
wearing them? Who
tablet.
who
I
wearing
got Levi's.
I know we wearing Levi's. I'm just talking about people younger than 40 that might be
I
listening or
done bought
watching.
plenty pair for my son. The red tab
You
Levi's, the
think he pay attention?
501s, baby.
But I think that's but to Miss Burrell's point, may she rest in peace. She was such a great teacher. Side journey. Oh, what a wonderful
An
woman.
angel. An angel
Really,
in uniform.
really. Was Here's another side note to that. She's the reason why Renee and I are friends. One day in
Literally.
class, she was like, I need y'all to get together. Y'all need to be study partners. Yes,
We were
ma'am.
too weak then
It
because I
was
was finna
like,
quit.
what?
I was
I
finna
didn't even
quit.
know what was going on. I guess that's why she was like, mm-mm.
I was finna quit. I remember I had talked to her. I was like, I don't think I can do this. I think I've been out of school too long. I got my son. I've been reading about winning the pool and all this. And it's like, okay, I've been, the most is someone's name that's going to be over like 7 letters. It's like, okay, now this the word got 14 letters. I was like, I don't know what none of this means. I was just so lost. It was like, that's all right. I got you. And she gave us a scripture. You remember the
I
scripture?
don't.
Yeah.
See me smiling like, oh, she did.
She gave us the scripture. For a long time I had forgot the scripture, right?
Okay, I'm about to write it
And I want to
down.
paraphrase it. It was like, oh, let me look it up. Y'all just bear with me just 1 second.
Well, while she's looking it up, I will just say, like Miss Burrell, when she said that, that's one thing that stuck. Like you can change your jeans, or you can't. You can change the Levi's, but you can't change your jeans.
Okay.
And that was. Go ahead, you found it.
Yep.
Okay.
Philippians 1:6. He who has begun a good work in you will continue to perfect and complete it until the day of Christ Jesus, to the time of his return. She gave that to us. And it was just like a good work done started in you. And then I just sent this like, I can't quit this program. Like she done laid it on my heart and laid it on my spirit. Just like, girl, we got to be friends now. Like, I don't even know. Like, I didn't know. Like, it wasn't like I don't like her, but it's like I'm sitting
It
here
wasn't like
fighting
that at all,
sleep.
honey.
Every
As Miss Burrell would say, I was having siestas. My little foot be tapping under the thing because I was trying to wake myself up. I could hear that I was there. I could hear what's going on, but Lord knows. And then I had the nerve to want to sit in the front. Child, I thought that was gonna help me stay up. It did not. Miss
Cause
Burrell
I
would
was
just
like,
tap on my notebook,
Myochi.
like, Myoshi, it's time to get up from your siesta, child.
I said her there. I said, Myoshi, I said, you be tapped dance. I said, don't help. She said, yeah, it do. I said, no, it don't. But I promise you, it was like when Myoshi was sleeping, I was woke. And when we would come together, you could tell when the notes, because it just was like almost like a flat line, like cardiogram or something. It was just like I don't know
Yep.
what this is, but through all of it together, like we got the full picture. It was like, girl, I know I was knocked out over there. At that point, I was like, but
Yeah.
we survived it. We survived it.
We
And we've been friends and sisters ever since.
ever since. So thank you, Miss Burrell. So
We
she
need to
knew
do a
something about.
show just about like celebrating the teachers in your life, because sometimes your teachers may not be your teachers is in front of the classroom. Sometimes your teachers are people who that was in your church, your family, definitely your parents, but like those other people where it's just like, guess what? They gave me this pearl and I didn't know that pearl was,
I think that's a
it
great
came from a
idea. I'm gonna write it
different
down.
different oyster. Where it's just
Yeah.
like this was to live by, and it was just enough so that I can just give a little bit of this pearl to everybody else, because it's like it don't benefit me to keep it all to myself.
Nope. But back to the point for Nawawi. How am I saying that right? Nawi. I
No,
don't know, child.
NWI.
Her mom was the Niska. I'm giving it away, child.
Yes.
So Naniska, as Renee was saying, Naniska, when she was younger, she was taken in battle, and but actually, she was also a big story in the village because she was kidnapped. She was taken. She was raped. They thought she was going to be dead. Eventually, she got away, and she came back to the kingdom. And so, fortunately, she found out she was pregnant, and she had to hide it from her sister. She did have her sister that did know. She was
Amenza.
a miss. Girl, let me tell you something. This chick got a brain like a steel
I have
trap.
it pulled up. Let me just.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, well, I'm trying
I
to pull it up.
would
I'm
take
like,
the credit, but it's like, what? I just gave a scripture. I ain't finna sit up there and lie like that. I had the cast of the people pulled up. So
but let
that's
me say this: you do have a mind like a steel trap, because you be like, just like a minute ago. You remember what she gave us? No, I don't. I'm trying to remember what I ate yesterday, what I bought at the store. But anyway, so Amenza was her sister, and that was really about the sisterhood because she was with her during the pregnancy, and then when she gave birth, that was such a, I don't know, powerful moment of sisterhood because Naniska actually gave birth in the forest, just them two. She helped her deliver, and she finds out as the movie progressed that Naui is her daughter that she put up for adoption because no one could know, because if you were a woman, part of it goes, you cannot be married, you cannot have children. That is the
there was a no go.
and that was
You
just like, and you knew going in. No, she did not plan to have a child, but that's what happened to her. So she actually put a little slit in the back of her arm
mm-hmm.
and put, was it a shark tooth that they say? Something from
Yes,
her
and she
necklace.
broke off a piece of the shark tooth and put it
Mm-hmm.
down in the baby's shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and like covered it so it could heal. So that was just, and that's also just another way of, we as Black people, like we always want to make sure we know our own, like just in case you come back home, we know,
Mm-hmm.
I know you will come back.
Because spirit has a way of bringing things back to
Oh,
us,
it
things and
does.
people. Even if
Always.
it's not in physical form, there's always, spirit always has a way to bring people back to us.
Yes.
And so the person who raped her was a warrior. In hold on, so Renee, you got it pulled up. What was those people's name? They was fighting.
Yes. His name was General Oba.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to see what was his last name. It
ID.
don't say.
But they were a
Some,
group. The group of people, whatever. We're gonna say the group of men that were going and kidnapping people because they were working with the white man. It was a group
yeah.
of black of Africans who were working with the Europeans to help get
Mm-hmm.
people, for the slave trade. So anyway, so that's the one who rapes her. So one time they're in the big spa. I guess it's a spa. It looked like the bathhouse.
Yes.
And she makes her turn around and she cuts her and she gets the shark tooth out. And she's like, and you just know, because Naniska also had a dream that someone from the past was coming back. But going back to the idea, because I kind of skipped around a little bit, of you could change your Levi's, but you can't change your jeans. So her
Mm-hmm.
mom, Naui's mom and dad was Naniska, the woman king, and the general of this fighting group. So that natural fight was in her. I
Yes.
don't think there was anything she could do about that. as far as the character, right? Because like Renee's talking about, they had to go through this obstacle, child. And I saw them going, even now thinking about it, when they had to go through that obstacle with the thorns, I told
Yeah,
her,
this
Tap
was
out.
Ninja
I would have
Warrior
typed out.
on steroids times 50. Like, and I love Ninja Warrior, and they do all these obstacle courses and stuff like this, but this is just like, okay, that mixed with whatever they do for military people plus a whole lot more. So it's like once you come out on the other side of it, like ain't nobody can tell you nothing.
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 And the king actually recognized her, when she
Yes.
got to the other side, because not only did she get to the other side, she went back for her sister.
Yeah, she went and she helped. So one of the young ladies that had been captured, she ended up staying. So they kind of was bonded together, just like no Waza uh and Viola Davis, like them. They
Okay,
really was
yeah.
bonded. Naneska and Amenza. It was
Mhm.
kind of like with them, very, very tight, where it's like we bonded. This is us together. Through all of this, they have some people that come and they're from France. And one of the guys, he's mixed. His name is Malik. And his mother was actually from that tribe. His mother always told him about it, but his dad was white. So I guess he was probably from some type of imperial family or whatever like that, because his mother was a slave. He did say that.
Mhm.
And so he was very, very fascinated with these women. This was the first time him being at home where he's from. So he has a strong connection with the people. And then when he's seeing what is happening to his people, that I guess it was his friend and his brother Santo, um, because that was the white guy. His father owns the ships and stuff. So they are like, this is their first time going to get the ships so they can be able to go get slaves and stuff. And because Malik has been raised in France and Europe and stuff like that, he's accustomed to that, but not to this point of chattel slavery like it was in the United States. But I guess he really didn't think too much of it. But then when he's seen, like, it's almost just like, you go to a slaughterhouse and then just like, I don't know if I want to eat meat no more. Like, you see how it's processed and you see all
You
the
see
stuff
what
that
happened.
happened. And it's just like, this don't sit well with me. And, and then he knew the language because his mother maintained the language and taught it to him and was just talking about the scenery and everything. And he was like, my mother never was free
Mhm.
unless she was here. And it just really kind of put in his mind was like, my mother had all of this to go to that.
Yeah.
And he really didn't
Because
know,
and
but
even though his mom didn't experience, we can assume, because this is, I believe this one is a kind of fictional character, right? But for this character backstory, his mom really wouldn't have experienced um all of the atrocities of slavery that happened, because because it seemed as if for his dad to be this man and for him to be who he is, that meant his dad must have taken him in as like, this is my son, and raised him, and that whole thing,
right,
right? Because we all know there was plenty of slave
right.
masters who was daddies, and you never was nothing but, a slave, and you never left off the plantation. But for him, so that situation probably looked a little different. But they were also in Brazil. So
Yeah.
that, American slavery looked a little different. Not to make say that anything is better than the other, but a lot of times it did look very different.
But
Not in a
just
good
not
way, but
having your
just better.
freedom, rather it was the worst as in chattel slavery like in the United States, or you still quote unquote indentured servant. Bottom
Exactly.
line is you couldn't go back home.
Exactly.
And a lot of your culture and your roots and your worship and all of that was just stripped away, and it really can't start becoming full circle to him. So like the king invited them for like this display. So this was like the last final day that they had um uh like the relay or whatever that they was going to do to see like are you going to become a warrior or not. He was able to see that, so that's how he kind of honed in on her And I guess maybe it was something that was very reminiscent of her, that reminded him of the mother. Because and then she really kind of liked him too, because they would meet in the bushes. Like she
Well,
snuck
because
out the
remember,
house.
their original meeting was when he was out there taking a bath in the river, and she was out there looking for a stone because Lady with the Knives was like she found a perfect soft stone that she could sharpen her fingernails with. So she
Mhm.
was out there looking for that stone, and he was big, and that's how they originally met. But when he saw her, honey, when he saw her on that relay, he was just like,
Ooh.
"Sit up in my seat."
Exactly. So clearly, that's still something that gets the blood going about a woman that's hopping, skipping, jumping. It's like she can protect her own. Like I want to protect her too, but like if need be, she got both of us. Like so, it was definitely and he wanted to take her back home, and then she was just like, no,
Yeah,
I
I can't
can't
leave.
leave.
Yeah,
And he kind of didn't want to go either, because it was just like he was just so drawn to the people, and just knowing this is where I
this is
come
my
from.
home.
This is what my mother always talked about, and this is like she never was going to come back to this,
Right.
because his mother had passed, and so it just kind of made him look totally different at the whole slave trade. Like these are not, as I say, he looked at his mother in one way because that's his mother, but I guess he probably looked at the other people differently, because him being of a mixed ancestry, and he probably still was able to have some privileges and stuff due to his father. It was just like, well, it don't seem all that bad, but you're not living in it.
When you
But
go and you see.
it's like, nah, this is not it.
So here's another little historical fact. 'Cause I'm just putting it in.
Hmm.
So the character we're talking about, Santo Fiera, who kind of he portrayed the enemy of Gazo. So that's the one who came in and was kind of telling him that this is what you need to do. Da da da. We're talking about Malik's friend. Um, that was a fictional character, but it's loosely, they say possibly loosely, because like all of this is like possibly loosely, because again we're thinking about history.
Right.
um Inspired by Francisco Felix de Sousa. He was a Brazilian slave trader who came to the province of Dahomey after 1810 agreement between Dahomey and Portugal that slaves only be sold to Portuguese aligned ports. So and yeah, so they were coming there, the homie, and just I know we say we're going to talk about it later, so I guess later is now. That was one of the biggest criticisms of the movie. That not that it wasn't spoke about. Well, a lot of people had this particular criticism hadn't seen the movie yet, but one of the big criticisms was that well, the homie played a major part in the slave trade, and in the movie they just made it seem as if, well, these people didn't even say it in the movie because they hadn't seen it. The argument was just that they played a big part in the slave trade. Why is this being like made this big thing, and why are they being celebrated? And when you do see the movie, they do mention the slave trade multiple times. Um,
And how it affects, because Viola Davis character, she talks about like this is not right. Like we're selling our own people, and it's like, but these are our enemies. Like, no, these are our people. This is not right. And before she realized about her dream, that's what she was thinking. Like something big is coming, something bad is going to happen. Not just like we can't contain this, is
mhm,
going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Like we selling these people to slavery, they not coming back. And really it's like we don't know what we're selling them to.
right.
We just know they ain't coming back at all, ever.
And I think also that the scenes that we saw were how they were holding them at the shore. I think those scenes were, or those things were actually what they were now seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this is how you, especially here's the idea, right? This is how you're treating them here. How are you treating them there? And if you know anything about a lot of other cultures, when it came to tribal war, they did sell people to different for indentured servitude. They say, oh, we're going to sell your people here, you go off here, and you not necessarily into like the American slave trade or just all of it, because honestly we talk about American slave trade, but all of it was happening at the same time, maybe just differently, but that's a whole nother a whole nother topic. But you know, the fact that you're now seeing this is how they're treating them here. So the idea of that, yeah, it's just a cycle, because that's what they talked about in the movie, right? It's a cycle. Yes, we're selling people who we were at war with, but okay, we're going to be in another war, and they're just going to kidnap our people, and we're selling our people, and regardless of what tribe you're from, whatever kingdom you're from, it's still our people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a factual piece of the movie. I like going back to that because again, it is important that it was inspired by true events. Everything didn't happen exactly how it happened in the movie. It made for a great movie. The movie was amazing. Please, 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 please go see it. It is free on Netflix if you have it. If you don't, get somebody log in, honey. And if you saw it, go see it again.
Exactly.
Because I mean, it's very inspiring. But so Naniska talks to Gazo about going to Palmore, and they do discuss, let's try doing that to continue to get money, because the slave trade really did make them a lot of money. Bottom line,
Right.
that's just what happened. Slave trade made them a lot of money. So he did at one point explore palm oil production as alternative source of revenue, but it proved to be less lucrative, which makes a lot of sense. And the king just resumed the homies' participation in the slave trade. So the palm oil thing that happened with Naniska and the king, that is a fact. Now, did they do that and get out of trade? They did not. There is something that I read that is like, child, please. And I'm reading it here too, but I read it other places where people were talking about, you know, um, so they talk about it in Goji. So they also said these group of women participated in slave raiding, right? So in the idea that
Mm-hmm.
you raid different villages to get people for the slave trade. So that is another um historical fact,
Mm-hmm.
whether how often it happened, why it happened, all those things, because we do have to remember the different bits and pieces of it. And it says it persisted even after the British Empire stopped the homie from continuing in the Atlantic slave trade. And Goji was a central part in the annual custom, because it was an annual custom. You can kind of see that happen in the movie where they have
Mm-hmm.
all of these things and gifts, and when the other soldiers come in to get their people and the other gifts, that was part of it, was considered an annual custom, so it wasn't happening all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting that they say that the British Empire was trying to stop them from participating, like.
We know that was not true.
And if there's any truth in it, like let's say fact, right? Because there's a very big difference between fact and truth. The fact could be that the British wanted to stop them, but they probably wanted to stop them so they could stop their progress. It wasn't because, oh no, please stop sending us your slaves. It was because, oh no, we don't want you to overtake us.
That, and then also you probably looking at how rich this tribe had become, and the
Exactly,
power that
exactly,
they were becoming, and then
exactly,
they probably looked
exactly.
at like, wait a minute, one day we gonna have to fight them. And they already know all our maneuvers. They already know we've given them guns, and then they know the landscape and stuff. So they probably seen this like, let us get out before they really wake up and it's like,
Well,
I don't,
they probably it
this ain't
probably was
right.
at a time that they were waking up. It probably was at a time where they were
Yes.
saying, "You are going to do this. We are not going to do that." And it was like, I mean, that's the first thing. Think about the story we talked about with TSU. Everything's fine, and until I tell you what you're doing wrong. Until I tell you these are my boundaries. Hell, that happens in just general, right? Everybody cool with everything that's going on until you say these are my boundaries. Then I'm crazy. I wasn't crazy 3 months ago.
No.
TSU wasn't horrible a year
They
ago.
didn't need a additional governing body. They didn't need
A year ago,
dismantle of
yeah.
all of this. It's like, well, it's all
Y'all
right,
been
but then
sending money to the school, giving students money to go to their school, and all of a sudden, the school is not up to par. Get out of here. So I'm reading that, and so that was where a lot of the critic um toward this movie, they came and I can understand that. some people I couldn't understand because you read their comments, and I go in the comments, and sometimes you really shouldn't. But I go to the comment section because I like to see how people think, not because I
Yeah.
agree with them. Sometimes it's like, why did I do that to myself? Because I'm mad about people I don't even know, you know. But I go, just it kind of gives me an overall picture of, oh, this is what people are saying, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And people have these comments about stuff that I was like, but you haven't seen the movie. The biggest criticism that I heard, it was like, why does it need to be a woman king? Why women always want to be a man? What?
And it had nothing to do with that. It
Not
actually
at
was the
all.
word that they actually use in that language. That is how it
It
interpret
translates exactly.
translate to woman king, meaning that guess what? This monarch that composes of a king and a queen, even though she was not the queen, guess what? Both of these people, they reign over the people and they rule. And it's just like both of them are kings, but one is a male and one of them is a female. It's just
Exactly.
as simple as that.
Very simple, but I don't want to just for the sake of being transparent, like I definitely don't want to gloss over their participation in the slave trade and how that has affected
Oh,
us here in America and affected even the people of Benin, right?
them.
Because the things that they participated in when everything went bad, like the people in Benin, they did not fare well at the end of it. People in Africa, obviously, and it's not just the people in Africa, one thing I've heard this recently, I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. Like our ancestors, not just people that's been here in the US, our ancestors are also in Africa. And those in Africa, your ancestors are here in the US.
Yes.
Because a lot of times during when they were taking people, honey, they didn't say, well, this family, y'all stay together. This family we take. They say, no, we're gonna take your mom, we're gonna take your daddy, your sister. But the rest of y'all
Yeah,
we
and
good.
then it eventually
So
became a free for all. So guess what? It
exactly.
still will be going on right now to this day.
Oh, absolutely. It really
Like
would be.
one that's why the United States 1776 they wanted their independence from Great Britain because of that. I want to keep in there. I shouldn't be giving. We doing all this work over here. We shouldn't be giving it over there to you. As the people, the ancestors from Mississippi. That's why they call it King's Cotton. It
Yep.
was the King's Cotton, and that just ushered in a whole new thing because it's like it grows so freely. You got so much of it, and it started, the fashion industry because people they didn't need a lot of clothes, but guess what? We got all this. We got to sell it. So you got a new, marketing that guess what? You need more clothes. You got seasons and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
never thought about that. But I listened to I think it was a Harvard book review about that, and it was just like how many industries end up popping up because of that. Because before that, it wasn't no marketing. It
Listen,
it wasn't
if
no
if
fashion industry
if
like
you
you
really
wearing the
learn
same
about
old thing.
if you yeah. I mean, and this is made me this what you just said made me think about something that someone told me, and I read it. I was like, that is so true. So most priests were fishermen long back in the day.
Hmm.
And so one of the reasons why it started becoming a thing that you eat fish on Friday is
Right.
because that was a way for them to make money.
Yeah.
And it's so ingrained in what we do. And nothing's wrong with that, but it's always like, where did this come from? Right? That idea of during this time we're
Hmm.
gonna only eat. We're not gonna eat meat. We're only eat fish. And if you're not doing the whole time during Lent, you're gonna do it on Friday. And even when it's not Lent, people, honey, we will have fish fries on Friday. But the
Fridays.
original thought of that came from the fact that that's how the priests make their money. And on
Yeah.
Fridays they sell fish. And so it's these little things, not that
Fish fry Friday.
Friday and they be rolling and it be banging. And again, it's not to say that all of these things are bad, but it's just interesting because there's a lot of things that we hold on to and don't understand why we do it or we don't do it. These
Hmm.
ideas that, why black women, it's a newer thing that we wear our natural hair is because at one time we could not. It was against the law. We had to cover it.
Yes.
So it
And that was
wasn't like
very especially true in New Orleans.
yes, it
Because y'all
was.
had laws where like, okay, the hair was just so beautiful and pretty and you style it different. and stuff. So then they had to cover it. So going back to our African roots, they would, tie the head wraps in all these different ways and different colors and dyeing it and stuff like
Because
that.
again, we always gonna make a thing, honey. You say I can't do it, that's fine. I'll find something else. If you don't
Let me
want to
let me let
feed
me show
me,
you
all
how
you
to
want to
tie
give
the
me is the
thread.
scraps. We're gonna learn. We're gonna figure out how to make these chitlets banging and pop. That is just how we do. And the reason why, sorry to anybody who feel different, but we are the original people. So when you are
Exactly.
original, you create, and you create from nothing. You create from something that was thought to be absolutely nothing. And I said the whole thing with the hair because oh, black women don't love their hair. Why can't you just love yourself? And it's like, it doesn't come from a lack of self-love. Where does it come from? It comes from the laws that were set against us. And you may not
Exactly.
know where it originated, but this is why, it has been hard getting back to that thing because women
Because
could not do that. Black women
because
couldn't.
the white women felt like we'll cover their hair up because that's making our men attracted to them. This is like, child, ever since they was coming over there to come over there, they was trying to get us. Like, honey, you can't stop that because we your face, cheekbones, lips, jawbone, chin, uh, 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 all of that.
Period.
All of that. So while y'all was giving us little burlap sacks and stuff to dress up in, they seen all of it.
Because we like, okay, we figured that one out too. We don't look good, period. Even the whole thing with, and that kind of made me just think about the whole thing with doulas, you know, healers and people who play major parts in the way we did things in community were also stolen and enslaved here in America. And we birth babies, not
We
just our
were the
own.
midwives.
We were
We
the
were
midwives.
of everybody.
Exactly. And what's crazy about that, if you look at 2023, the work that midwives and doulas are doing now to normalize Black women using doulas and midwives is, it's wonderful, but it's interesting that although we were the original people doing it, how that was ultimately eventually taken from us, that those jobs were taken from us and they came and learned from us. And then it was like, oh, well, you can no longer, do midwifery, only have a nurse,
Mm.
only have a doctor. When, to be honest, there were no people who were doing it. The midwives, the Black midwives, were actually the midwives for everybody.
And they could just tell what was going on without all of this instrumentation and ultrasound and lab work or whatever. They could tell based off what was going on, your screams, the feel of everything, to see if this baby turned in the right way, is your blood pressure. That
Yep.
they knew.
And statistically, even now, women do, Black women, all women do better having midwife, doula assisted births.
Yeah.
One of the big pushes for, especially Black women, because we all know that the mortality rate for Black women giving baby here in the US, which is crazy, not in a first world country, you might die when you have a baby. You can go everywhere around this doggone world, that is not the biggest concern. But here in the US, no matter your socioeconomic economic status, no matter what no matter your education, that is a concern for you. Like, that is
Mm-hmm.
the big, I remember hearing this story of a woman who she got her doctorate degree based on that. She did a lot of studies on that. Do you know this woman died in birth? So that proves
The
the fact, like,
irony.
everything about this, but she died in birth at a hospital. But which is horrible in the irony of it, but that is one of the bigger push because they are seeing statistically that Black women are doing so much better statistically giving birth with a midwife or a doula because of that knowledge that they bring. And also, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff besides knowledge, um, care, compassion, belief
Yes.
that I feel pain, all that.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's just interesting
And
the
just a
how
little
everything comes
shameless
full
plug.
circle.
If you're in the Louisville, Kentucky area, one of our A1 day ones, Brianna, she's a doula,
Oh, let's
birthing by
put that in the
Brianna.
comments.
Y'all gotta check her out. It's a birthing by Brianna. So she is a doula there. She is great. She herself, because our sons are the same age, she had a doula. Um but the doula didn't show up and it was me. She did
So
great.
you was the doula, honey. Your ancestors came. They
Was
you
like,
reached around
I'm
and
just
grabbed
trying to
somebody.
go
Like,
to
I'm gonna need you to
sleep.
help me. I'm gonna need you to help me.
Yeah, because
Great
we was trying to
ancestors.
call the lady or whatever. She never did answer the phone. So I can't even remember like what afterwards, like what was her deal or whatever. But things happen or whatever. But she had a doula through the entire process up
Mhm.
until the delivery or whatever. But then she had me. I was there, so I was able to help her. I was like, girl, breathe, 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 breathe. Like everybody in there screaming. Me, my son, he went in with like 4.5, 5 months old. She was screaming, just know what to do.
And
Like,
that's one thing about a doula and midwives. They do a lot of work. I think, well, I know doulas do more work because they do a lot of education pieces up into pregnancy. So even in the event that you had to deliver on your own or something happened, they to prepare you to advocate for yourself at the hospital. And also if you just so happen to have your baby unassisted, they prepare you for that, which I think a lot of women, because that's not something that we are really educated in, right? That you
mm-hmm,
don't know if someone isn't teaching you this, how do you know what to do? How do you, besides looking at some things in Google? But Google not gonna give you everything. These people go to
right.
school for a reason. They definitely know more than Google knows.
Exactly. And
This
I
is
think it's just one of those things where, for those people who want their mom there, the father of the child or their sister, you have those people as the supportive people, but they get lost in the sauce and they antsy, but
exactly.
then you do have that other person that's solely there for you. They're not the nurse coming in, every hour checking you or whatever like that. They are there the entire time to help you, to hold your hand, to ask you how you're doing, and also to be an intercessor.
Mhm.
As I say, like, yes, they have a vested interest in a successful, healthy birth of the child, and delivery for the mother. But they can just kind of function a little bit better under these stresses where your mom and them may get up there and was like, I done called this lady, I done hit this button 45 times, and she ain't came. It's like, it's just been five
Listen,
minutes.
your doula
You
might
know,
have you look at your doula because you be like, when I give you this eye, that's when you need to tell my mama, hey, how about you go get a Coke? So your doula can do that because in those moments you might not want to tell your mama that, but the doula will nicely
they
say, hey,
help manage
hey,
everybody's stress
exactly.
levels.
How go get a Coke and some ice, and that'll help. So
And to let you know the whole time when somebody, even if you're there at the hospital, because a lot of people, they still go to the hospital and they
yeah,
have a doula that is there with them, and then they go, and then when the nurse or whomever come in and they doing these different things, they can be able to explain stuff in layman terms, like, hey, in probably another hour, this is where you at with your 5 centimeters. So you're in this particular part of the birthing process, your labor. So like they're able to break stuff down. Now whether you understand it depending on where you at,
and what
you
they
know.
really will tell you, that's the importance of even having one before, because you can talk about these things, but they will tell you, even in that moment, you don't have to do that. Because a lot of times, this is what a lot of women have reported. Like when someone comes in, whether it's a doctor or a nurse, what they're saying sounds like what you need to do. And so the doula will say, hey, these are your options. You can
Mhm.
you can make whatever choice you want, but these are your options. And if you choose this option, this is what happens. Choose this option. So I think the benefit of that is bringing that knowledge in, like you said, because if you're having a baby, that's your brain is everywhere. All you want to do is like, get me had this baby, let both of us make it. And because that's your goal, sometimes you can't think about anything else. So having that extra person is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But just
Get you
going
a
back to
Mensa. And say if not, your good friend where y'all go out there in the bushes and y'all had this baby successfully and healthy. So even with a Mensa, even though she was a warrior princess or warrior, um, she still knew things in terms of with woman and having birth. Because I'm pretty sure Naniska was not the first person that joined and ended up getting pregnant.
Well, because also she was the person that if we watched from the beginning, um, it's funny because that was like the piece I was gonna move to is she was the person who we saw throughout the film upholding rituals from the beginning to the end. So in the beginning, she was the one who like she like and then this goes talk about go get your nuts. So that is a real thing where you speak in the spirit through the nuts and they kind of tell you something. I don't remember what the nuts are called. You can look it up, but I know that I think they put a little bit of African traditional religion. I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
RTS, of different pieces of it together.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you see her in the beginning. You see
Yeah.
her when she's interpreting a dream, and you also see her in the end when she goes to venerate the ancestors and to honor them and pour out libations,
Yes.
which we do, right? So we don't know, but when you hear black people, I'm pound of 40 for my homie,
I mean,
that is
like that has
literally
come from us, from I gotta pour something out, and it is an outward symbolization of what's going on in the inside of your heart and definitely in
Mhm.
the spiritual realm. So
But
a
it's
lot of these
crazy.
things is not nothing new.
It's yeah, and the thing is, some things, although we may not know, right? Like even going again to Miss Burrell, that you can change the Levi's, but you
You
can't
can't
change the
change the
jeans. You
gene.
may not. I didn't really know about pouring libations, to be honest, until most recently, like in the last year or so. And but I knew about pouring out for your homie. I
Right,
knew
as I
people
say,
did that,
how
and
many
that's literally the
videos and
same
stuff
thing.
or something like that, if not, seen it in movies and stuff, and it's definitely with us black people.
Yeah, it's
Black
literally the
people,
same thing. So we honor our ancestors, we honor spirit, we honor our traditions and rituals a lot of times without even knowing. And that was a perfect example of that in the movie. So that going back to what you said, so I think she probably was that person who carried, her character was the person who carried
yeah.
these rituals and healer thing, because I would assume maybe a healer could also be delivering
Hmm.
babies. So yeah, she was a person who did these things. um but yeah, the
Yes.
movie was amazing, so amazing that we could actually talk about it for an hour and actually longer.
But let me tell you this,
Hmm.
because it almost gave this last little point. Give me 2 minutes. When
Okay.
Viola Davis like leaves and like she's like, "Nah, I'm finna go free my people,
Mm,
and I'm finna take a walk." And then it's like, no, I'm gonna go on a walk by myself or whatever. It made me think of the movie 300,
mm,
where the king then he was like, no, I'm just gonna go take a walk, because it's like these other people, they done, these spiritual beings and stuff, like, nah, they ain't coming, they're not coming into this. And then, and that was a historical piece where it was like a little small passage where it's like, and that's where it went down. So like your whole army couldn't get through, but those
mm-hmm.
300, they held it down. But
Yeah.
it was just like she running, and
Oh,
then she turned around, and it's just like, I got my
everybody
squad with me,
in
like,
this
y'all ain't
squad with me. And
ready.
300 was a phenomenal movie.
Yes.
The comparison of the two, very much
Yeah.
so. This movie gives you everything. The movie, it was heartwarming. It had love story. The fighting, you had it. Like if you like fighting, they had it, and it wasn't one or two scenes. It was like throughout.
Out. It was action. It was
Yes, it was
action
as
packed.
one of the critics said, the gladiator of our time.
It
That
was.
is a powerful statement. Um,
And it
yeah,
and it and it make you like, I need to go to the gym. Because
definitely.
unlike 300, where they had these different things, where they had these people airbrushing, like everybody would look like they was just ripped. Like, no, these black women, this was not no airbrush, no
No,
nothing.
no,
This was
no.
the, guess what? I'm finna grease you up. That's all it is. Like some good
They
old
worked
Vaseline,
out.
and guess what? I'm just gonna grease you up and let everything else just do its thing
They worked
from.
out at least 6 hours a day. They talked about it, and the producer, no, the director, Gina. What is her name? Gina Prince by the Wood. Gina Prince by the Wood. Also black. Just want to point that out.
Yeah.
She actually worked out with them. And so the
Oh,
benefit, yeah, and she said one of the reasons why, of course, is build the camaraderie, but her knowing the muscles that they're working on, she knew what type of movements for them to do, and where angles
Mm.
to catch. They
Mm.
just since I'll name, because I wrote a couple of things down about the black people who were in like prominent roles. Didn't know this, but the composer for the movie was Terrence Blanchard, a black man. Didn't know that. I think
Mhm.
that was completely amazing. And then I don't know, for those who maybe didn't even know about Viola Davis. So this movie, people didn't want it, and Viola Davis and her husband have a production company, and they put their money on this. And I mean, I think
Yeah,
they
because
did
she was
partner
trying
with
to get
someone
it in
eventually.
production almost 10 years, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it was Viola. She bought the screenplay. Yes.
Yeah.
And she was trying to get in production, but her and her husband, they put that they bet on themselves, and they
When you bet on
produced it,
black, you can't go wrong.
honey. And bet on yourself. Bet on yourself every time, because you bet on yourself and people see, that's when they want to latch themselves to you.
Hmm.
But yeah, they did a great
Well,
job.
you
The
see,
movie's still
Netflix
doing.
wanted some of that money too.
Hello, hello. So they getting some of that Netflix money. Netflix. Everybody want Netflix. I want a Netflix money. Can I get a
I know
Netflix
that's
check?
right. Can our people? Can
Streaming.
y'all start a little petition? We need a 40 spy. Y'all need to bring podcasts to Netflix, and they need to
Love
have
that
some for a little bit
idea.
of everybody.
Yes, I love that idea. But y'all, watch this movie. I was gonna say go see the movie. You don't have to go nowhere. That is like the best part about it now. You don't have to go anywhere. Go to your living room, go to your phone. Now, only thing about your phone, you're not gonna get the everything. But if that's all you
Cause
have,
it's
do it.
small. Yeah.
But put it on. It's so good. I'm telling you, I could watch it again and again and again. When the movie is so inspiring, you leave with, even knowing all the historical facts, right? Because definitely wanted to put that, even knowing all the historical facts, watching it, you feel so inspired to keep going. Like there was so many moments of this is it when they turned it around.
And also, it also said kind of just like W.E.B. Du Bois. Everybody want to be the talented 10th, but once you become that 10th, you got to turn around and you got to help the 90th percentile. It was definitely giving nobody left behind, because on several different things, people they turn back around.
Yeah,
I'm not leaving my sister. I'm not leaving my people. I'm going over here. I'm putting my life on the line for my people.
it's very much
So
giving Harriet.
yes.
Oh, Queen
Yes.
Harriet. Yes.
So it is still even like, yes, this tribe really did, this kingdom did atrocities to their own people, but you see where it's like, okay, this ain't worth the liquor and the sugar and these, whatever. Like this stuff is go fade away. Like, okay, you get drunk off of this liquor today, tomorrow you got a headache, you feel like crap. The next day your people is gone and they done sold them how many more times?
Right.
And
And they
and
didn't. They also receive money though, right? So I think
yeah.
that's now
But you
other places
introduce
didn't, but
money into a culture that did not have that. It was always a barter system,
yeah.
you
And
know.
one day I think they had some other type of currency, but you're getting this money or whatever currency that you now can get things from other countries,
And you
and
don't
now
even
you
know
can
really
do.
what it's worth and what it is that you can buy,
Right.
because you're
But you
not.
know you're gonna barter with them. They're gonna give you this, and now you're gonna use it to barter with other countries. I mean, this story is very, essential to this one thing. But the reality is one thing we have to remember. Yes, I always want to remember the story of how we got here. But it's kind of like you reminded me of this. It's kind of like the crack epidemic.
Mm,
When black people started participating in selling drugs, it was the most money, and I'm not saying this is the most money that homie had seen, because whatever, but for people here, the most money that you see in the black community was a way to make money, and people were already doing like smoking weed, which you smoke weed, you move on, you do about your day. They didn't know the long-term effects of it. And also with both of them, the reality is once you're in a certain lifestyle, there is this pull, not just from ego, but from everyone around you to continue.
mm-hmm.
You have responsibilities to people that it's bigger than you. So that's also a piece, um to remember, when we're remembering these things that happen. And I say that because there's so many people who are angry with Africans, all Africans. I laugh because Africa is a huge continent, but they're angry with
Huge.
Africa. They're angry with their ancestors that came before without placing, again, when we talk about history, there's so many different pieces. Yes, that does not take away from the atrocities that our people here in the US experience. But there are so many moving parts and pieces to remember that it was bigger than a lot of times once they started. What you gonna say? You stopping? You
And then
stop
and
it?
it begs it also make you think this was not the only kingdom that was doing it, and maybe some other people caught on to it and it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And guess what, they stole them too, because we
Right.
do know, we have historical books and facts that kings and queens and kingdoms, they were stolen and sold and was enslaved as well. So
And
it
even
didn't
when they weren't doing modern day slavery, I mean, the things that happened just right next door in Nigeria, you know, they were partnering to take over Nigeria, which that's not even, that's a whole nother conversation. But Nigeria said is I want to say it was Biafra was the original name of Nigeria, and Nigeria is actually named after a company, the Niger Company. It's kind of like a Procter and Gamble. That's not the real
mm,
name of the company, but because they purchased the country just like the U.S. Because they
wow.
purchased the company. Because you think about that's where Nigeria comes from. The Niger Company. You can look it up. It's a company,
Mm,
and how they
wow.
how they made different treaties with tribes. And I'm not trying to make it about that conversation, but the reality is that is the things that was happening around. That is right next door, and that may have happened a little bit later, but that happened because of other things that were happening against history,
Hmm.
right? Again, history and how these stories are all connected. um
Right.
so I think, again, y'all watch this movie.
Yes.
Watch
Watch
this
it. Let us
movie.
know what you think about it. Email us
Yes.
at gmail.com. Also show ideas and different stuff like that. But we
A
definitely
movie
will.
review, because I really enjoyed this tonight. So if y'all have any movies y'all would like to us to review, we've been thinking about doing a book review too.
View. Yes.
And so we could like let y'all know what book we're reading and when we plan to do the review. But I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was great. This was our very first movie review and stuff. But I mean, it was definitely very, very layered. So it was a lot of content because it was a 2 hour plus movie. So it's a lot of just film in general, but then it's just so much to unpack there. But I feel like the takeaway is don't leave your people behind. And don't sell your people. Don't sell them out and don't sell them. Them
There
your
you go.
people.
Yep.
That's me. And get you a good sister. Get you a
Mm-hmm.
good sister that's a ride with you, and guess what? If she going forward and she get a little bit ahead, she always gonna turn around. She's gonna wait on you. She gonna help you, because guess what? We all getting over.
She gonna
That's
pull you out the thorns, honey.
yes, yes. That's
That's
my
what good sis will
takeaway.
do.
You
Yes.
got any takeaway from the
Girl,
movie?
listen, you read that? You got that one good, boo. I love that. That is a takeaway. I
Yeah, so
love it.
please, still DM us, follow us on at the 40 spot, um, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcast. Again, please like, comment, subscribe. If you're following us on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live. Also, follow us where you get your podcast from. Rate us.
Download.
Yes, download us, rate us, leave a comment, leave a review. Guess what? I know some of our podcasts will be like, I don't have 2 hours. Well, it's just like your show. You don't have time to watch all 8 episodes, but you come back. So do the same thing. Do the same thing. Y'all know y'all like our content. So tell a friend, share the video. If you're watching on the replay or listening on the replay, we appreciate you all. Please continue to like, comment, follow, subscribe. And if you're just feeling great, you want to support the podcast, you can hit us up, Cash App at $the 40 spot. We there.
Hello. So meet us back in 2 weeks. We'll be here with another great topic. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. And
Yes.
remember, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive. Y'all have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye bye.